Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well today. I wanted to send out a little video. I know I sent one yesterday and gave you a lot of information about what our plans were at the church as far as opening up and all of those things. And there was something else I wanted to talk to you about for just a moment. I didn't really have time on yesterday's video, so I wanted to do it today. I want you to hang with me for just a second. I want to share some thoughts with you. As you can see, I'm sporting my Shady Grove camouflage shirt, my Shady Grove apparel today. And I want you to think with me about a couple of things. I want to begin by sharing, first of all, a verse of scripture with you because I believe that's very important in this situation. From the very beginning of all that we're experiencing right now, the first Sunday, if you remember, I shared a devotion with everyone on Sunday morning from 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. It says there, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." And we talked about that a little bit. I want to take that verse for a moment and turn our focus now to the very last part of that verse. The phrase "a sound mind" is actually one Greek word, and that word can mean self-control, or as it's translated here, a sound mind. I believe the intention of what God's wanting to say to us in that verse is that the spirit that He's put within us gives us the ability to think through situations and to act in those situations in a mature, appropriate manner. In other words, if it was your mom or dad speaking to you, they might say, "God gave you the sense to be able to figure that out." And I want to take that and share a couple thoughts with you this morning. I know that there's a lot going on right now, and I also know that there's a lot of our church people whom I sense are still very, very, I'm going to categorize you as fearful concerning all the things going on, this virus and all that's tied to it. And I understand that because I know what you're being told. If you, as many do, especially some of our older community, if you rely upon the news that you get every day, WRAL and some of those other local news stations, if you depend on them to get your information about this situation, then you have a right to be fearful, and you probably should lock your door and never come outside again. But I want to say to you today, that is not the situation we're in. As a matter of fact, I believe if everybody, and just everybody in our church, if you really realized how misinformed we were being, you probably would refuse to ever watch those news outlets again. And I'm not saying that there is another outlet that's perfect and it gives you all the right information. But I'm saying to you, if all of your facts and all the things that that are shaping your thought process about this come from the news that comes on at 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever time during the day, if that's where all your information is coming from, then I would say that you are fearful because you are misinformed. And I want to talk to you about that for just a second today. And I don't claim to know everything about all of this. I do have common sense, and I'm educated as much as any of them are, probably. So I want to talk to you for a second, and I want you to think with me as your pastor, because I don't want you to be living in fear when you don't need to. Listen to these numbers. At this point, according to everything I can find online, which, by the way, it's pretty difficult to find statistics online on Google right now for some reason. I wonder if that's intentional. But it's hard to find the flu and all of those different causes of death statistics right now. Way more difficult. I just spent 15 minutes or so, maybe 20 minutes, trying to figure out some of these numbers because they didn't come up easily, and I think that may be intentional. But anyway, that's for another day. But as of right now, 550 people have died in the state of North Carolina, and those deaths have been somehow or another tied to coronavirus. Now, before I go any further, I want to say to you, it has been proven that these deaths that have been reported have been falsely reported in many cases. I mean, the guy gets hit by a car, right? He's riding his bicycle, but he had the coronavirus, so coronavirus was the cause of death. Now, that may be a little bit of an extreme example, but it seems that that's what's happening. So 550 total deaths in North Carolina at this point, with that knowledge that they have been reported incorrectly. 550. North Carolina has 10.49 million people living in the state. 10.49 million. In 2017, I want you to hear this. In 2017, 2,076, almost 2,100 people died of the flu or influenza-related illnesses in 2017. People in the state of North Carolina died from a combination. These are the two top causes of death, of heart disease and then cancer. 40,000. 40,000. In Durham County, we have a population of 275,000 people, right at it, a little less than 275,000 people. And in our county, 32 people have died connected to coronavirus. And again, those numbers are not really accurate, because I know one of those people, and that person did not just die of coronavirus. Those numbers are not accurate, and even if they were, 32 people have died in our county of 275,000 people. Why do I throw all those numbers out? It's because I want you to think with me. The idea of a sound mind, or the idea also could be self-control. The idea there that God presents to us is that He's put His Spirit in us, and the Spirit of God enables us to weigh all the factors, to think through stuff, and then act in a way that is mature and informed and spirit-filled and led, instead of when it's acting in fear. As a matter of fact, from the numbers, if you really want to talk about numbers, here's what the news story should be today. In 2000, I believe this was 2017, 40,000 people died in the state of North Carolina from heart disease and cancer. So you need to stop doing anything that causes cancer, and you need to stop eating McDonald's hamburgers. That's what the report should be, because way more people died from heart disease, eating greasy food, eating fried food, eating constantly from fast food restaurants all the time. Way more people died from that than any other cause of death. And yet we've locked ourselves in our homes, will not come outside, won't go in buildings, wear a mask and wear gloves every day, because we're fearful that we're going to get some virus that only in our county only 32 people have died from. That's not even reasonable. We need to think for a moment. We need to think about what we're doing, and we need to allow ourselves to consider this whole situation and not act, or maybe I should say react, in an immature and unnecessary manner. Now, is there some danger to a person who has some pre-existing conditions health-wise that they could get sick easily? Absolutely there is. Just like when there's a flu virus pandemic going on. No different. No difference at all. And I want you to understand that and think about that. So I say to my church, and I know I'm not God, and I'm most certainly not some renowned doctor who has studied these things his whole life. No, I'm not. But I do have a brain, and I know that some of these things that we're doing and saying are unnecessary. And I believe my people in my church, God's church that He's given me to lead, many of them are fearful, and they don't need to be. Now, do you need to take precautions? Do you need to wash your hands? Absolutely, because there's always stuff out there. But you need to be more worried about some of these other things than you are about this virus that's going around right now. Because the reality is, that's not your enemy. That is not your enemy. So, chill out. And I mean that in a reverent way. Chill out. Stop worrying all the time. You don't have to be worried about every time you go to the grocery store and get a loaf of bread that you touch the bread wrapper, and now what am I going to do with my hands? That's insanity. That's fear. That's fear. We don't have to have a spirit of fear. Matter of fact, God in us enables us not to have a spirit of fear. We don't have to feel weird when we get around people. When you see somebody not wearing a mask, by the way, I haven't put a mask on yet. When you see somebody wearing a mask, you don't have to feel like, oh no, they're going to give me a disease. Chill out. Relax. Be a good Christian. Love your brother. Be kind to him. Respect him by all means. But we need to wise up a little bit, because I fear that those who have ulterior motives have sold us a bill of goods that is not correct and is not accurate at all, and now we are reacting to that in a very fearful manner. I challenge you today: realize God's in control, and you're not. And by the way, neither are the government or anyone else. God's in control. He's the one that we need to trust in and depend upon. Not me nor you, but Him. And we need to look to Him for instruction and direction. And then use the things He's given us. He gave us His Spirit in us to help us know how to act in a reasonable, controlled way. Don't be swept away by their false speech and the false things they're saying. Instead, realize that God's working in a situation. He's going to be with me, and He's going to help me. Use your brain, and don't fall for their lies. I encourage you with those words today. I hope that that's helpful to you, as it has been for me in many ways. From the beginning, I had some concerns as well, just like probably you did. But it's time for us to wake up and realize that we have been had. God bless you. I love you, Pastor Tim.